Ready? Hello, everyone. I hope that you can hear me okay and that my mic is good. Just let me know if not. Welcome to Into Being Art live stream, the 1st of November. And we got a really big and I think a good topic today. Talking about the psychedelic community. I'm just gonna share some thoughts and we can like just have a discussion about it, what that means and like the future of the psychedelic community, what it is, some theory or whatever. Hey, it's good to see you, Bodica's Dark's video spot. I never know if I'm saying that right. No, it's a Bodicia, I believe. I think so. And Space Suitor is peaking apparently, so that's good. I like to hear people are having a good time. Good, thank you. Oh yeah, of course. There's a bit of delay, so I won't know if I'm like 15 seconds behind you. Thank you, NB. Thank you for letting me know. Sorry, I know those letters aren't NB, but because I'm freaking ignorant, that's what I see it as. And it's nice to see you too, Vincent and Church Dog. It's good to see you too. We just do drugs and make vids, not much about it. Yeah. Well, yeah, there definitely is a lot more to it. But I kind of agree with you that so this is kind of like a follow-up stream, even though I haven't watched my older stream on the psychedelic community. That was like ages ago, like at least 3 years ago. Um, Buddhists, yes, I do drugs sometimes. Um, I'm actually drinking coffee right now. I'm drinking coffee, getting stimulated in my brain. Oh, thank you, May the Sane Rain. I appreciate that. May the Sane Rain says I look good. Yeah. So yeah, because I actually just got back from like a long day out, so that's why I ended up having to delay the stream a bit. So I apologize if I'm off a bit, but it's good to like just chat for a little bit and like get used to being on stream. I like to start streams off by acknowledging that I am on Mi'kmaq, the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. It is true that the treaties never surrendered land, but was an agreement to share and work together and peaceful friendship. And that's just something we do here in Jabuktuk, also known as Halifax. Ludlow Vert says they're drinking coffee too. That's awesome. Yeah, so I did write down some stuff. Actually a bit more structured today. Last time I opened the floor too early and so directionless. I was like, what do I even say? No, but there's things to say this time. So I wanted to start the stream off by talking about last week's video a little bit, just like addressing a couple comments and um, just like some reflections on it, which does influence the rest of the conversation about the psychedelic community, but they are a little bit separate, so I'll try to be quick with it. So last week, if you're aware, I'm sure if you're here and interested in watching this live stream, you probably watch my video too. But you know that I called out, or I'd like to say called in the Coda of Earth to the conversation. But I feel like there's this like tendency that like we don't really see it as a call in. It's like more of like a call out, or that like I feel like a lot of people are getting the impression that I'm trying to like cancel the Coda of Earth, where I'm trying to like have a conversation about the issue about platforming problematic figures and ideas. Um, Ludlow says they haven't seen it because they had a busy couple weeks. That is totally fine. Yeah, like my assumptions aren't always correct because like, you know, it's hard to gauge uh like the audience is faceless. That's why it really helps when like I see your messages and stuff like that, and like I get a feel for my viewers' personalities. Otherwise, you're just like numbers, right? And it's really weird. Um, Mitz is here. um, See you starting conversations. I love the initiative. Oh, thanks. Uh, thanks. Made the same read. Um, yeah, yeah. Like, so that goes into a couple of the comments that I got. That so I'll address these. I only picked two select ones because I think they're emblematic of like a lot of the positions, or it's either like one or the other. Um, Kitty T said, "Have you heard the conspiracy where you expose and cancel all psychedelic YouTubers and become number one XD question mark?" And I think they were joking, but like it also does like, you know, I think it's good and healthy to acknowledge that aspect of it, and like confront that. Um, I don't really like think I'm trying to like deplatform them or like cost them subscribers in this competitive mindset, because I feel like that just feeds back into the capitalist mindset that we're just out to like crush the competition. Um, no, I make these videos because like it's something I care about, and it's like, you know, I had this idea that there was a psychedelic community, so to see like, you know, really like what I see as like toxic behavior in the psychedelic community, I think it's like good to like point it out and talk about it. It's not always like a strict binary where like you're either a good person or a bad person, and if you're a bad person, then you like damn you to like the ether or something like that, you know. So like I feel like we're really in this like cancel culture, competitive capitalist mindset, and it's like, no, we need to like, um, thank you. Yes, my cat is very cute, Vincent. Her name is Mitz. Um, but yeah, it's like we just need to like kind of work through that, confront it that it is a real, you know, aspect or whatever. But like, also like not let like the defense of like, oh, you're just trying to cancel someone as like an excuse to like do whatever you want or like do shitty behavior. Um, and yeah, so like I didn't really talk about it yet, but like the shitty behavior in question, um, this comment kind of addresses it. And it's actually a church dog Obama prism. Yeah, I'm actually like going to talk about your comment now. Like, and since church dog is in the chat today, maybe we can actually talk a little bit more about it. And you were saying that there shouldn't be anything wrong with uh, talking about conspiracy theories. And you know what? Like in a vacuum, I would agree. It's just like ideas, like can't hurt you. They're just like ideas, right? But there is a point where ideas do influence individuals and makes a difference on like a population, especially how those ideas are propagated. Like there's a big difference between, you know, the concept of, let's say, David Icke's theory. I apologize for mispronouncing his last name in my video, by the way. I was saying David Icke. Um, but David Icke believes that the world leaders, or most of them, are uh, alien lizards that feed off fear through the fourth dimension. To like, if that idea just floated around, like that's to contemplate. Yeah, sure, that can be healthy. Like it's healthy to like contemplate even like the most like outlandish things, but like there's a difference between just like contemplating that or entertaining that idea in a controlled setting, but when the setting is propagating this as truth, or that like there's no opposition to, it can lead a lot of people into actually believing these things and end up causing like very very violent and scary like outcomes. You know what I mean? It's a like even though David Icke is saying just don't give them what they want because they want fear and they feed off that. And I've been seeing some rhetoric around that you can't that you can choose just not to be scared or whatever. But I don't agree. Like these emotions come from the nervous system and they are a reaction to reality. And if your perceived reality is that lizards are shape shifted into human form to feed off of you and keep you in a state of like suffering, like that's gonna have an effect on you. And I don't think that's a really good outlook, especially because there's no evidence for it. um, Boudiccia's dark video spot says, it seemed to me you were just cautioning against going into QAnon or other psychotic insanity. And sounds to me like it's more like symbolic than literal. Well, yeah, like that's the thing. Like, when we say someone's cold-blooded, that's like evoking like a different state of animalistic being. The state of being a lizard is like very cold, and you just like go for the kill, and they don't seem to like express like love and affection in the same way humans do. So to associate humans like that, I understand that. That's why people call people they don't like snakes or whatever.
But did Ike not say he meant that literally?
Yeah, but that's the point though. It's like when David Icke is talking about this, he made a point that this is not an allegory because there is a faction of people who choose to believe that the alien lizard theory is like an allegory, that like the bourgeois is actually like a parasitic reptile or whatever. But no, David Icke pushed back against that. He's like, no, literally, these lizards are here, shape-shifted into humans from the fourth dimension. So that needs to be like fought back against. So yeah, Fear Talk says I agree with that. Yeah, people take it too far, and that is an issue with people going off the rails hunting down reptilians. And yeah, that stuff does happen. Like it's true that like some people can believe this theory and not necessarily be violent. You can say that with like any religion too. That like religion has historically caused violence, but that does not, by any stretch of the imagination, make everyone who's religious violent, or like even like I still believe that's a pretty small portion. But the point is more so, uh, like it wasn't even like the alien lizard thing that gets me. The thing that really gets me with the whole podcast is that he was claiming that the pandemic was a hoax, and he was claiming that climate change is a hoax, and those are two extremely important things that we have a consensus they are real because they're an active threat to massive amount of people. It like could mean our extinction literally if we do not like take these things seriously. um like there's a reason why YouTube took the video down, and I don't see any accountability from Dakota of Earth at all. um I messaged the or rather Davey Reed, I believe it's Davey, his first name. He messaged me. He was because I didn't mention it in the video, but it was like the three of them. It was Davey, Dakota, and David Icke. Um, and like to me, it seemed like it was like a childhood dream come true. And he was like saying that. So I said that like I'm glad you got to see your hero, but I'm specifically criticizing Dakota uncritically platforming these things. Um, music stops to let the controller know that its battery's dead. Um, but yeah, so I said that to him because he messaged me after sharing on the story, replied to my story saying that it was still the best moment of his life, um, or one of them. And so like after I said what I just told you, that like what I was specifically criticizing, he was like saying that like it was just a bit of a troll. And for me that makes it worse. Like you don't like to know that these guys don't actually believe the ideas, but they still like allowed it to like be platformed and like talked about as if it is the truth, and as if there isn't already like a good proportion of people who truly do believe that in the population, and there's a good proportion of people who are like angry and like ready to mobilize. Like yeah, like Boudica Boudicca said, um, that like it's very similar to like QAnon and stuff like that. It's like there's a reason why like it's proper to get like a material analysis of reality, because if you if, a good number of people start believing in like uh, them or like the reptiles. I was trying to evoke what's that movie called again? With the sunglasses and like, isn't it called Them?
Is that They Live?
They Live, yeah. Yeah, they're like alien parasites or whatever. But like, if you actually believe, some people are alien parasites, it can lead to violence. But I feel like that's a bit more like rare. But the fact that there's a lot of people who believe the pandemic is a hoax and climate change is a hoax, there's already a large amount of people that do believe that, and I think that's harmful. Um, yeah, so like those propagating those ideas when like a lot of people already believe them, and like it is harmful. Like here in the state that I live in, Canada, there was anti-vax people who were blocking hospitals and not allowing ambulances to get in. Like I know like there like that's it, it was really inhibiting people's um, well-being. It was like pretty next level. Um, but yeah, here, read what you guys are saying. Um, Church Dog doesn't believe there should be any accountability. Interesting. How long do you think we have to live? Global warming, solar flares, supply chain. I couldn't tell you. I know some scientists are like saying that like it's probably going to happen sooner than we think. That like 2050 things are going to be much more rough than they are today. But I can't say because we don't know exactly how it's going to go down. Like the weather is hard to predict, but like the the change in temperature, it's we can predict enough that things are going to change pretty drastically in terms of water, fresh water drying up, and increase of like severe weather, um, and temperatures and stuff like that. Depression and inflation in U.S. still in quarter. I don't know about depression and inflation in U.S. How long? Uh, Bodhisattva says, "How long we have does not matter. I believe we have an obligation to not feed into the deadly form of chaos." Um, well, yeah, honestly, like you bring up a good point, because like at the end of the day, like as leftists, we are trying to um, put a dramatic slowdown on the global temperatures rising. I mean, like we're pretty powerless right now to the will of these corporations that are destroying our planet. Um, I think a lot of times people say like, "Oh, humans just suck," but no, it's like we're being killed by a very few amount of people. Um, it's not really our will or anything. But yeah, you bring up in terms of like how long we have to live, is not like so much a question, but rather like how are we going to adapt to a changing climate, and that means like our setting, like cities might have to be rearranged. Whole social orders might need to be rearranged, and we kind of have to be prepared to change. Um, Yul Adamus asks, have you looked into psychobiotics, body, gut microbes that affect the brain? No, not so much. So feel free to educate me.
And a little bit about the links between depression and serotonin reception and gut biome, and like
I,
like how
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I could see that. Like, I know there's serotonin receptors um, in the gut, but I don't really know much beyond that personally. Um, I'd give 9 years, Dylan Gorder says. Yeah, well, I hope we have more. The U.S. has 60 years. Okay. Um, yeah. Yeah. I think talking about climate change is also like really good, especially like in relation to the psychedelic community, because that's it's like reflecting on what is the role of psychedelics in the current state of things. So I wrote down a list. Um, okay, pulling it up. Um,
Wait, what's that about building a wall in Florida?
is someone saying build a wall in Florida? Why build a great wall in Florida? I don't understand that. Oh, you mean to like for the water rising? All right. So, yeah. So moving into fostering the community, and like trying to figure out like our role in um, the greater society and the world that we live in. Um, so, um, so there's like I heard a good point from another YouTuber talking about like online communities, and it does like feel like it's um it's a small percentage of um or sorry, I lost my train of thought. I started saying a different sentence. Etch a sketch. Starting again. Okay, I'm here. um, so online communities feel different than in-person communities. That's the idea I'm gonna want to say is that just seeing usernames and sometimes like no profile picture and just seeing text without like any like verbal nuance to what they're saying. um, there's still value in online communities, but there is a pretty strong distinction between what is the online community and in-person communities, and I wanted to like stress that community feels very weird because it's like, what do we mean when we say an online community? It's kind of like a space where you can reach out to other people who have similar interests, or just share a similar interest with you, and you can have conversations and people are willing to talk about it, and that um, and like converse and interact, and that like seems like all community is here. I feel like it gets a little bit stronger with discords, although there's still like distance there. um, so like, but I don't know, like I don't know how close you really have to be in order to be like a community, but it's just like it is weird and different. um, so like I can't remember too well. I was gonna watch my last live stream before doing this one, but I really had the impression that like there was a psychedelic community and we had like similar interests and we knew that psychedelics were the way, and that their psychedelics were basically the all-in-one solution to everything. It's just like, oh, you have a problem, just take mushrooms. um, but yeah, just feeling like, having grown up a bit, I feel like that's like very like naive. I do think psychedelics have incredible benefits and just like effects. It's just, they are incredible things, but to feel like you can replace um, basically everything with psychedelics, I don't think is like really good. I also don't think it's like for everyone by any means. Um, um, but yeah, there's still a place for psychedelics. I still think they're really great. I just don't think that they're like central as Terrence McKenna would say. Um, Terrence McKenna was like very much adamant about psychedelics are the center of the whole issue. Um, Although he also like said that um, it's not that it's a sure thing with psychedelics, but it's the best game in town. Um, and like I don't know, like I definitely think it is one of the best tools in our like tool belt, but again, like really putting it where it belongs on the tool belt because I get like a lot of feedback for like when I talk about like real world issues that people are just like you need to like take more psychedelics and be zen. And it really bugs me because it's like don't just don't worry about that and instead just escape into a psychedelic intoxication. And like I don't mean to be reductive about it. I still think psychedelics are great, but they don't solve the issues at hand. I still have to pay rent after taking psychedelics. That's still pressing. My homework needs to get done, um, so to speak. Not so metaphorically speaking. Um, May the Sane Rain says, "What's spiritual? I'm just trying to be alive." Yeah, that's a good point because I wanted to talk about that because so something I realized about the psychedelic community, it's not like just like one place where we all have a similar interest. There's like a lot of sub communities and sub communities, and I just like wrote down a list of the sub communities I've noticed in um in the overarching psychedelic community. Um, May the Sane Rain says, "Where are you hailing from?" I'm hailing from Jubuktuk, also known as Halifax, Nova Scotia, Mi'kmaq. Yeah. Okay. So there's it's talking about like what's spiritual, just trying to be alive. Yeah. There's the New Age spiritual um, psychedelic community, and they're really characterized like I was there myself for a while, and it's like the characterization of that is like basically cherry picking bits of all the world's religions and like all the mythologies and stuff like that, and kind of just like creating an aesthetic and little like bits of meaning that make sense to you and like can like I think that can be life enriching to an extent, although it does like a part of me feels like a lot of times it like ends up coming off as like ignorant. I know in my case it was just because like I would like be like, yeah, I agree with so and so religion, but not really know much about it. Um, it can like lead to like cultural appropriation too, which can be another problem. Um, and yeah, but then like a smaller faction of the New Age spiritualist community and psychedelic community, I find tend to go towards Christianity, and I've known a few YouTubers go towards Christianity. It's like, and they usually talk about when they did psychedelics, and now they're like they found Christ or whatever. And I think that's interesting. Like people like reject Christianity and then be atheist for a while, take a bunch of psychedelics, be a new age spiritualist, just to ultimately go back to Christianity. It's an interesting arc I'm still trying to understand. Um, yeah, a lot of good, cool opinions in the chat, but I'm gonna like, I feel like I will lose my train of thought if I start reading. So, everyone in chat, just feel free to go off. Uh, I'm probably go. I'll probably scroll through it in a bit. Just want you to know I still value it. um, and then there's also the underneath the subcategory of New Age spiritualists, there's New Age spiritualist entrepreneurs, and I find their memes very amusing. Um, the I think the belief is that like by recognizing your own spirituality, and then they'll use like language like becoming harmonious with the world's vibrations or whatever, you learn to do what it takes to survive in this system, and they use that enlightenment to know where to invest their stocks, what business ventures to undergo, and usually it's in the vein of psychedelics or whatever. This sometimes can lead to like basically further colonialism of indigenous cultures, setting up retreats that ultimately benefit Westerners. Um, but yeah, like I find their rhetoric so amusing, because like they'll say stuff like, um, "You just need to set your intentions, and you will get $1 million this year." That kind of thing. You can like harmoniously, what's the word? Manifest money into your life, and it's like, damn, I wish that was true. I think the reality is a lot of people who are convinced of New Age spirituality are not really recognizing their privileged position and ability to like have some loans or parent money or stuff like that. Um, but even if by chance you were able to like pull yourself out of poverty, I don't think that's really like a good method to expect everyone to be able to do that. Um, so like it's basically enlightenment under the terms and conditions of capitalism, and they'll like really like interpret capitalism through their spirituality. Like it's like the more you did right, the more a god or like some like guiding spirit is rewarding you, when it's really just the structures of capitalism that will allow people to benefit off of usually other people's labor, or just like like pyramid schemes and stuff like that. Um, yeah, but uh, criticism of the capitalist system does not happen with New Age entrepreneurs. Also, honest, I plan in the future to maybe like react to some of those memes, because they're really funny. Um, yeah. So then the other subfaction of the psychedelic community, another one is the conspiracy one, and this one like really does like have a this one that really has a Venn diagram with New Age spiritualism, because I feel like there is a difference between conspiracy theory and spiritualism, because I think spiritualism can still operate under the uh, uh, way of thinking of materialism and science and stuff like that. But with conspiracy theories, it's like they are claiming a truth that without evidence, and it usually has like very like outlandish things. Like I don't know, like because it can be like more low key, like when it comes to like uh, things that have happened in politics, like the assassination of JFK, to um, basically like any war or whatever. There's all these conspiracy theories about like what could have happened and stuff like that. Um, the CIA in general has like a lot of conspiracy theories around them, but it's weird. And some of the wildest stuff is the stuff that has documented proof. Um, but so like sometimes like conspiracies can sound almost rational, but if it doesn't have evidence, then it's not really helpful, Um, so like again um like what was that person's name? I know your name. You're commenting earlier. Church Dog, yeah. Like Church Dog was saying that like you can entertain. It can be healthy to entertain these things, but they are they can be very unhealthy to actually believe and to treat as if they are real or just someone's truth, you know, because like you have to respect someone's truth to a degree, but if there's like a frisbee coming to your head and your truth says there's no frisbee, the frisbee's still going to hit you in the head. And when it comes to like other people's health and safety, that's where you cross the line of like you're no longer just like entertaining a thought, you're like pushing a belief of something that's your truth on, and like threatening the well-being of other people, either by blocking hospitals or preventing people from getting vaccinated or whatever. Mimetic Park says fakeness permeates religious circles along with ill-willed charlatans and pure misguidance, but as humans, religious spiritual thinking is where wisdom is found. I'm not sure if I really agree with that, but yeah, like I definitely think, I don't know what you mean by fakeness, like instead of authentic. I honestly think that when most people are saying authentic, they mean not just. I see it through a capitalistic way of like someone who's not being authentic is someone who's pretending to be a certain way to get a certain ends, usually like seek more profits for themselves or whatever. While being authentic is being like your true self or whatever. But yeah, I definitely don't agree though that religious spiritual thinking is where wisdom is found. I think like maybe there can be wisdom found, but like it's not the place where wisdom is found by any means. But yeah, so like on the other end of the spectrum of the psychedelic community is like the research and medicine people who are like mostly just interested, like a lot of times this group might not even take psychedelics themselves, but they're more interested um in the research or the like medicinal benefits or like um uh, uh what the results or statistics are about them, what looking at the research and stuff like that. um and I think like this is like a good group to like help for activism. I do feel like sometimes the activism leans toward wanting to be able to study these things and be curious and like legalize them medicinally, but like kind of like neglect to consider the dangers of the whole like war on drugs in general. Um, so like yeah, I don't know. Like I think there's like a lot of people who want to legalize psychedelics aren't like really taking in mind that doing enough to like fight the entire war on drugs and instead favoring to chip away at it by like legalizing certain drugs in certain cities, one city at a time. And I did like I can't spit on it too much because like obviously like it's still better than nothing, but yeah, it's like the whole thing is just like something that really needs to be resisted. But I'm getting ahead of myself because uh, a lot of a lot of times you'll get like these business capitalists who want to get in on this like medicine right now. I actually just read an article earlier today. I recommend it. I was actually gonna post it in the description. I have it here actually. I'll put it in the description while I'm talking to you. So this article is just an opinion article by Rolling Stone. Sorry, I should have got the author, but uh, the piece was, "Can psychedelics and capitalism coexist?" And it was just like opinions on this conference or whatever. And uh, it was a pretty good article. It definitely was like left leaning, but by the end you like really like see how like liberal it was. Um, it was just talking about the problems, the potential problems that could arise from uh, legalizing psychedelics versus decriminalizing them, and how like a lot of capitalists who may not even have really interest in psychedelics other than the profit incentive to place patents on these psychedelics, which hundreds of patents, I believe it was hundreds. It was a lot, anyways. It might have been only 63. That number just popped in my head all of a sudden. But bottom line, there was a lot of patents, more so than usual this last year, um, um, on psychedelics, and that would mean that like one person or company could own the rights to certain psychedelics and uh, basically make it so that um, psychedelics are only legal and available to people who can afford it. So like if you can afford the therapy, afford the medication, then afford the insurance, then you can have psychedelics. But only like when you're like, very desperate in like a desperate mental state, and they're the ones that are able to determine that. So it would just basically stay illegal for most people. Um, and yeah, capitalists, they um, always self-motivated individualism. But it's hard not to be in the system. Um, in this system, I mean, you have to operate by those means. I actually can't send it to you. Maybe I'll have to I'll shoot it in the um yeah, but I can't get the link to myself. I would have to like email it. Yeah, and just to be too much work. There, I just put it in the chat under my other uh other YouTube, my side YouTube, which you should all subscribe to. Even though I haven't made a video in over a year. But there's the article. But yeah, by the end of it, he was just saying business can be good ultimately for decriminalizing psychedelics. Um, uh, Claire asked advice. I would advice for what? Did I miss something,
You
Claire?
did. Taking shrooms for the first time this weekend advice.
Oh, first time this weekend. Yeah, yeah. Did they say the dose?
No.
Yeah, well, dose is everything for in terms of what kind of experience you'll have. But yeah, just like make sure everything's safe and set up for you. It depends how deep you want to go, like decide on what dose. But I would go off of whatever the dealer or source says how strong it is, because uh, 2 grams of one type of mushroom could like knock you on your ass, and 2 grams of another type of mushrooms could do nothing. It really depends. So it kind of makes it hard sometimes. But if they're in capsules or from a good reliable source, and you want it to do a stiff dose, just like make sure you're with people you know and are comfortable with. The fewer, the better. Um, and just like try to make it as chill of an environment as possible, and allow for like possibilities so that like if you wanted to eat, you have it easily accessible, and make sure your place is nice and clean if you wanted to. But honestly, these are like things that we do like for ourselves on the daily. But like I just, especially when I'm like in a psychedelic state, it's harder to do certain things, you might become more aware of clutter, and it could be like, stifling. Sounding like JP all of a sudden. Clean your rooms.
Clean your room. Stand up straight with your shoulders back.
Yeah, if you want to take psychedelics, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Yes. So did that message come through?
I didn't see it come through, to be honest. No, it was way after that.
Huh.
No, you didn't come through.
Interesting.
Do you want me to Google it and drop it in chat?
Yeah, or in the description if you can.
Yeah, let me see. I know only you can edit the description from the back there.
Oh yeah, right. I'll put the article in the description after this video's done. How's that? Yeah, but then so there's the venture capitalists who are out for the medicinal side of psychedelics, but then there are other types of venture capitalists who are they want psychedelics for themselves, to microdose or to get all these business ideas, and they're tend to be more transhumanist, and they really think that people like Steve Jobs are heroes or idols or whatever, to aspire to, and that the reason why they're genius was because of psychedelics and acid or whatever, which I mean I don't really agree with. But yeah, it's taking psychedelics to basically for coming up with business ideas and just doing capitalism better, which is just very strange, especially because psychedelics were a part of the counterculture, and now it's it's in this weird state where it's you know I feel it's the world today or society today, countercultures still are very much pro status quo. It's it's not about escaping or changing the system. It's about how to do the system best and improve yourself so you can again crush the competition. And yeah, I would say that is not good. I think the so, especially seeing how little time we have, talking about climate change earlier, I definitely think that we need to be able to recognize that it is a fundamental part of our system and not the fault of the choices of a few people. That is the problem with our current circumstance. And it's so if our problem is that we are stuck in a system and we need to adjust into a new system, if that's what we need to do, I think that paves, or that what's a good word? I think that creates a really good opportunity for where psychedelics can aid, to help people adjust to radical change that is really scary otherwise. It's no longer a metaphor that psychedelics have the ability to change your mind, and it's not that it'll always change your mind for the better. Psychedelics can lead us towards all of these roads that I just laid out for you. So it's not that psychedelics will make you believe one thing or another, but generally speaking, if we need to if we really need to change our system, change our behavior, be able to do radical things in order to curve the acceleration of climate change, because we're already heading towards very catastrophic weather and climate change. But that doesn't mean we can't do better. We can curve that, slow it down, and try to mitigate what is already predicted, which is 1.5, maybe 1.6 at this point degrees. And if if things are keep going as normal as like, you know, what all the empires are like steering us toward, is just like further cataclysmic devastation. um and it's like it's pretty imminent. It's like 100 years imminent, like within the few decades imminent. And it's like those this is very real. We need to accept this is real. The only reason why they're able to um be allowed to bury the evidence and be allowed to lie to the public and create all this propaganda that like of like climate hoax is because the system, uh, the capitalist system, prioritizes um, the bourgeois and their profits. So the only way we can really like stop getting worse into climate change, the only reason why we haven't changed yet is because we haven't forced the radical shift. And in order to force that radical shift, we need consensus, and we need um, like a lot of compassion, organization, solidarity, and you know, as individuals, we're very much atomized, and we'll really need to like strengthen our communication, which I think the internet both hinders and accelerates our communication. That's like the weird thing. Like on one hand, it's like, yeah, it's easy to like poo poo on the online psychedelic community because you know, we're just like usernames and text or whatever. But as I'm sitting here, as you're listening to me, I'm like looking at, you know, even if it is just like a handful of people talking about the psychedelic community. Without the internet, there would be no conversation here. I would be alone in my room just picking my nose, thinking about stuff. So in a sense, um, oh my god, did Phantom Audio 83 really said COVID-19 does not exist?
I watched you allow that comment and I was like,
I wasn't paying attention. Phantom Audio 83, I'm sorry, but I'm like getting rid of you. This user's message will be hidden. Good.
you just undid that.
How do I redo it? Good. Goodbye, Phantom Audio 83. That was the end of you. Sorry, I was just like so into the conversation, I didn't realize there was climate deniers. Like, I'm serious, I don't have time for it. Like, I care about the psychedelic community, and that's why I really care about why Dakota of Earth is like allowed that.
Common cold 19. That's kind of funny, Phantom. I can't lie. Like you're still being hidden, but that was kind of funny.
Yeah, the COVID is definitely more than a common cold. Yes, so I was just talking about the leftist position. So like, yeah, that's the other sub community of the psychedelic community is psychedelic leftists who, you know, are dialectic in that like we can still support these cities decriminalizing psychedelics while also pushing for more radical change, like greater, bigger, systemic change, because it's not enough. Like, you know, like we're not going to change the world one city at a time by allowing psychedelics in. There's going to need to be a counter or like a revolutionary movement, and that it doesn't necessarily, it's not all about violence, you know what I mean? It's like a lot of organization and mutual aid. And mutual aid usually means getting people their food and supplies, not as an act of charity, but as an act of solidarity, like a strengthening a community. But there's also, I thought I hid you.
I don't know how they keep coming back. I just hit it. Don't. You'll unhide it.
I'm just just remove it. You're throwing me off, Phantom. You Grateful Dead fan. Grateful Dead would not be deniers. Yeah, so strengthening community with mutual aid, yes. But it's not just material supplies. There's also the mental health and this general health component of community and mutual aid. So I think that's also where like what would you call that, like underground subcultures doing kind of a bit of like psychedelic therapy. I'm not necessarily advocating that like you should try therapizing your friends by giving them psychedelics. It's like I'm not trying to say that, oh, you have depression, psychedelics are the answer, but I do think in like my utopia looking down the road that communities will be trained in therapeutic techniques and stuff like that, and as a community we'll be able to judge better when like someone is when it is and is not appropriate to give somebody psychedelics. And the age thing will also be like have to be like determined, like probably based on like maturity or whatever. Because like I do think there is a certain age is probably not good to be doing psychedelics. Lisa 82 is coming in at us. I'm not allowing this comment, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting deniers here. I told you they're real. It's a real part of.
I think that's phantom audio on the new account.
Really? Oh, it's possible. Yes. Yeah, well that's the other thing about like the online community. Like, you could be talking through multiple accounts for all I know. Have I ever played Do or
Dos Ex or Metal Gear Solid 2? I played
No,
Revengeance.
I haven't.
Revengeance was fun.
Yeah, Revengeance was good. Yeah.
Soundtrack slapped.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I forget exactly what I was talking about, but that's okay. Because there's one more psychedelic community aspect that I wanted to talk about. And there's probably more. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, but and this is like a weird, or not, I shouldn't say weird, but this is an atypical part of the sub community, and that's the indigenous communities, because like for a lot of Westerners, psychedelics was introduced to them initially through indigenous peoples. Um, and so like a lot of the ancient histories and like long traditional stories, they're just trying to throw me off.
Yeah, I think. Sorry. Hang on.
Yeah, so like that's like how Westerners learned about psychedelics to begin with. I know that there's like talk about soma and the whole potential of like secrets, or that like psychedelics were like destroyed in the West. But bottom line, like uh, contemporarily speaking, like the Western introduction to psychedelics were through indigenous communities, and I don't think all indigenous communities do psychedelics, and every single indigenous tribe, clan, nation, band would do it differently. It's these things have long traditional practices, and they're not always static either, or they're never static either. They're growing traditions, and I feel like the reason why I said that it's an odd subsection is because like it's not like it's one of those sub communities that aren't incredibly online. So there's this whole conversation on their behalf online, where it's like talking about a lot of people like to go to them or like bringing the shaman, like flying them around or whatever. And it's like, like I think Terrence was right that it's not good to like fly the shaman out to you. Like that's like such a like incredibly privileged thing to do, and like just kind of rude. Like you should be like doing it in its proper environment if you're going to do it traditionally. But it's like but it's become such a like huge market that it's debatable if it's really good to go to these indigenous people um to try these psychedelics either, um, because like the market that's been created definitely disrupts the traditional practices and their traditional ways of being. Um, it's not like sometimes it can be beneficial, but it like definitely do more harm than good, and it can bring a lot of tourism and unwanted guests. Like it like a, it's I think there's just like an incredible like what would you call that, like assumed uh uh like Western people like really take it for granted. We think that like if we have the amount of money or a good amount of money that we deserve or have a right to traditional knowledge or practices or ceremonies. And it's just like you can't always buy your way into that. You know what I mean? Like it's not like always cool just showing up at some village's door and being like, "Hey, I want to party with you." Like it can be pretty disrespectful in general. Like it's one thing to like be like if you are a researcher and like you have like a pre-negotiated like allowance that you're allowed to like go there, but like to just like show up at someone's door and demand a psychedelic experience, I think it's just like incredibly rude and ignorant. But I think there's a lot of um, uh, and unconsidered privileges by Western people, um, to be able to have access to these things. Because I do, in general, think that it's good for settler communities to have good communication with the local or neighboring indigenous communities. Um, and sometimes like if there's like ceremonial things that involve psychedelics that like can be good bridges. um, but sometimes it's like communities just want to be left alone too, so like sometimes interaction is not always the best thing. But I think like neighboring communities, in order to have that peaceful friendship coexistence, there's usually like good communication between them, and like a recognition of the humanity in all of us and that we're equals. Um, because yeah, like a lot of Western um, presumption is that we are superior technologically speaking, economically speaking, like and intellect, and like the list goes on and on, which is all like was like originally fueled by like racist theory that like of white superiority. Um, so in order to like fight back against that, we like really need to like be able to like see each other, our humanity. Um, but yeah, um, I think that was about the end of it. I also wanted to talk a little bit of psychedelic savior syndrome, because that's also like plays into this. Is that when I was talking about psychedelics aren't like the solution to everything. I think it's easy. Like this is also a self-criticism. I need to like acknowledge that once we like first take psychedelics, that we believe that like if everyone felt this, if everyone was to have the experience I had, that things would just automatically get better. Like war would stop, conflict would resolve. um, and yeah, like you know, just because like if you have a really great experience and you feel like you are really empowered by that, you know, like I think it's good to like hold that to for yourself and not like buy into this like superiority that you have an expanded consciousness or that you're woker than thou or whatever. Um, and just also that it's not going to be a, like something that made you feel better isn't necessarily going to make someone else feel better. Um, like so like it really it like sometimes I find um, after taking psychedelics it's hard to listen and you can't shut up because all you want to talk about is like the psychedelics or whatever. Um, but I think it's like really good like as a process of like dissolving the ego means anything. It just like listen to people um, and hear other people out and see their position and how they might have gotten there. Um, you know, so like it's really good for that. Like obviously, like you can't like you know um, some ideas need to be pushed back against, as you could see with my latest videos. Yeah. Um, let me just grab the water. I've been realizing because like I did not realize before this, but uh or before lately that like as I've been trying to do more videos this year. I made more videos than I was aware of that are critical of prominent psychedelic figures. When I was critiquing Terence McKenna, I've made like 3 or 4 videos about Terence McKenna. Um, that's just like more of like it really feels like a springboard to talk about. Well, no, actually, you know what? That's like it's the truth with all of them. The more I think about it, you know, the when I talk about Terence McKenna, I'm not trying to say that he's like an awful speaker. You shouldn't like consider him, but like, um, there's like some things I disagree with that like I want to like point out. Whereas when I like did a video about your mate Tom, Dakota of Earth, and Joe Rogan, I I am like genuinely upset with their actions. Whereas with Terrence McKenna, when I did those videos, it's just like this was his opinion and I disagree. Um, and also with Dennis McKenna, I feel that way too. Um, but I wanted to like acknowledge that like this is not these videos aren't me like canceling these people or trying to silence them. It's more just like counterpoints, counter discussion, um, and like you know, I think in certain cases the criticism is well deserved. I'm not trying to like I'm really refraining from trying my best to not do ad hominems or like you know put down other people. I know I slipped up with the Jordan Peterson video. I I called him a clown at the end of the video, and I took that out because I realized it wasn't chill. Because I don't want to do that. Um, but yeah, like the my point is that like I'm not like trying to like silence these people. Anyways, I'm just like trying to further the discussion. Um, and but a lot of times it's also like used as a springboard for me to like talk about things I want to talk about. So it's like if I want to say I don't know say that we shouldn't I don't know platform certain people, then I can bring up an example of a person that did not do that very or did the very thing that I'm advocating against. So it's not that I like gonna make a video every time I disagree with somebody on the internet by any means. Dear Lord, if you think somehow Joe Rogan is helping the psychedelic community, I fear what kind of community you desire. No, I don't. I really don't
That
think.
wasn't to you.
Oh yeah, someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm lost in the conversation. Oh, Mimetic Park thinks your mate Tom and Dakota are cool. I honestly I think your mate Tom for a long time has not been very chill. I think he's hiding a lot of his bigoted cards and trying to pretend like that's not you know, a real position he has. Like, you know, I really think that if you had held the belief that, um, you know, queer people should be converted, for example, or that like Hindu objects should be burned, but you don't want to say that. You just like get a guest on your show to say it for you, or like that has the same beliefs, and you're just like, oh cool with that. You know, I think I think um, he's not checking his own bigotry. He's also trying to claim that he can't be racist because he's Chilean or is a Peruvian, either Chilean or Peruvian, which doesn't really make sense. Um, so it's like he just avoids all accountability, and yeah, he's very particular with his guests. Whereas Dakota, it feels like he's just being very reckless, and I think that's very unchill about him. But that's my opinion, anyways. Um, it's by no means am I trying to like um, ascend the psychedelic fame ladder by trying to like uh, denounce other people and replace them by any means. That's not the goal. Um, but yeah, silencing is and platforming are two completely different things. Because you have the right to say whatever you want, but it's different to say that from a microphone, and it's different to say it on a platform when it's already like it's dangerous to say so. Um, it's like words do have consequences. You can't just pretend that ideas and words won't affect the greater world. You start saying that the pandemic is a hoax. There's a lot of people that already believe that, and you're like fueling that fire. It's dangerous. So I think it's very irresponsible.
Especially like recognizing that the majority of so-called platforming these days takes place through the means of private corporations. YouTube's a private corporation. Facebook is a private corporation.
Mm-hmm.
They are well within their rights to decide what they do and do not want discussed on those platforms. And it's like that's why platforms like Mastodon, for example, exist, is like to create a space that's not regulated in that way. And at the same time, for Dakota of Earth to be attempting to bring somebody who has been banned off of YouTube back onto YouTube. That's like if YouTube was like, I don't want that person in my house anymore, and Dakota of Earth was like, but he's my +1.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
it doesn't quite work like that. And it's like you said, like silencing and deplatforming are not the same thing, because you have a right to say whatever you want, but not wherever you want to say it.
Yeah, and
know?
not as if it is truth without uncritically.
Yeah, and like for Dakota of Earth to be, as we're saying, platforming David Icke in that way without challenging, criticizing, or even like speaking against anything he said, that is by default support.
Yeah, he was supporting the ideas. He did not challenge them whatsoever. You can listen to the podcast yourself. There's like no point where he like pushes back.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it sounds like he does agree with them. I don't think he actually does, but like I think it's pretty awful if he's just trolling. Do you do these streams on a schedule? Ludlow Verts asked. I tried. Yeah, I was going to. When I started the semester, I was trying to do live streams on Wednesdays and release a video on Fridays, but I quickly got overwhelmed and did not know what to do. So now I'm trying out doing Friday streams, like this Friday, and then next Friday I'm going to be releasing a video, and then the Friday after that I'll be streaming again. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do for a while, just so that you still get weekly content, and it gives me a week to write a script and prepare, then a week to film the video because I'm in school, so it's kind of hard to do all that in 1 week. Stream, script, and film and edit. It's all a lot to do in 1 week. So yeah, every other Friday. Yeah, siding with censorship. Yeah, like when I was younger, I was really against censorship because I would be trying to watch Austin Powers on TV, and they would censor the fart jokes, and it was just so awful. Like, why would you even play that movie if you're going to censor it? So that's what censorship meant to me. That, like, you shouldn't say certain things. But there comes a point where saying certain things do have very dangerous consequences, and yeah, like there's a big difference between um, not allowing the platform of someone, not allowing someone to go up on stage and say something really horrible, um, versus you can't say that at all, because like if it's it really matters.
I don't know. I don't think we're advocating for censorship. We're not saying that people shouldn't have the right to say things.
Yeah,
We're
there's a
saying
difference.
that things should be said in a space where pushback can be given. If I disagree with you, I have a right to disagree with you. If I think the things you're saying are like potentially harmful, then that's something that should be addressed. So it's about having conversations in a space where pushback is, enabled and like something that can be received. And yeah, that's not the same thing as censorship. And again, like the point about like YouTube as a corporation being well within its rights to not allow certain discussions is because YouTube is a private entity. The same thing does not apply to like a government body. I would not approve of a government body having
Yeah.
the same power. It's just that by creating terms and conditions that we have to agree to use a service, legally, they can do what they want as far as telling us what we are and are not allowed to say on that platform. I really wouldn't characterize us as necessarily pro censorship
No.
in the way that it kind of felt like MH was like implying there.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, like,
say more, MH. Say more.
well, there's a whole sub YouTube, or not, it's not a YouTube, it's like a video platform where you can just go wild with all the right wing conspiracies. And there's just like lots of videos, like people are saying like very like dangerous stuff on that platform. But there's a reason why they go to that platform, is because it's too dangerous for YouTube. YouTube will not allow it. But you brought up a good uh, example earlier of like, like you can I asked you not to bring someone to my party, and you brought them anyways. So like using the party analogy, uh, we've had parties in college where people showed up and they started saying things that made people upset, like everyone upset. And it got to a point where everyone at the party was like, these people need to leave because they are being really shitty. And it's like, technically they didn't physically do anything. Was the party censoring them, or did they like have to come to the conclusion that these people are being harmful and disruptful to the good vibes, to the good time, and like to their even well-being? Like they were being very threatening, like like words do have consequences. We can't keep pretending that words have no consequence in reality, or that they can't be harmful. They absolutely can be. um like, these are real people they're talking about too when they're talking about alien lizards, and I'm not trying to like absolve them of their crimes, but like, so I believe there's definitely been cases where people have been falsely accused of having reptilian blood, like those two
Well, no,
kids.
there was those two kids in the States just a few months ago.
That were,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree that social media is closely related to government regulation in the sense that the government is in the hands of, or rather in the pockets of the corporations who
Mhm.
pay for their campaigns. And so I am not pro YouTube having an influence on government decisions about censorship. I'm not about that. I can see how legally within the terms and conditions we agree to, YouTube has a right to decide what we do and do not talk about on their platform. I am not okay with that influencing government decisions.
Mm-hmm.
For brevity and clarification.
Yeah. Like when we're talking about like as the structures exist today. Like, I'm not talking in defense of YouTube or the government necessarily, but rather like under the operations that are currently underway, this is like totally reasonable.
The vibe check, yes, MH. And that's what we're doing. We're vibe checking the psychedelic community right now. We're saying, hey, that seems kind of shitty. Reconsider.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like the example I gave in my video, like imagine if I told people that their insulin had demons in it or that there was microchips in it. That is the equivalent of what these anti-vaxxers are doing. Like they're like literally preventing life-saving medicine to people through baseless conspiracies. Like if they had some evidence or anything like that, or like it could like have some legitimacy. But even then, it's just like you gotta weigh out the risks, and like these have real world consequences. It affects people's health, like people's lives are literally in the balance. I hate to be dramatic about this. Some things you just gotta take a stand on. But yeah, so like in terms of the future of the psychedelic community, I think we should like kind of recognize that there will be like different subsections of the psychedelic community, because a part of me like once I like saw the darker, or like I won't say darker, the sides of the psychedelic community that I didn't like, I got I've been ever since then I've been wrestling with, do I even want to be associated with the psychedelic community at all? Do I want to be associated with New Agers or like spiritual entrepreneurs or you know research psychedelic medicine capitalists or whatever? But if we recognize that it is a complex um, community made up of sub communities, and the greater community, the only thing we really have in common is a passion or an interest in psychedelics. But that passion or passion or interest can vary wildly on like who's talking and why. Some people are just into microdosing. Some people are just in it to invest in. Some people are just into aesthetic, and some people are into the philosophy. I can keep going. Um, um, so it like I think like by recognizing that there are like sub factions or sub communities in the psychedelic community, I think it's kind of the best way forward. Hence why I want to refer to myself as a leftist psychedelic person or a psychedelic leftist. I mean, like, there's no one title that I feel comfortable with, but in terms of talking about where I'm at, if I just said like I'm a psychedelic person, that could like mean so many different things, as I just talked about in this stream. So I think like it's not that like we necessarily need to pick sides, but like in terms of where we want to put our attention into, what communities and conversations we want to be having, and what is the future and potential for psychedelics, we kind of need to like look for the sub factions and like know who we're talking to, because like in terms of like conspiracy people, like I just don't like. I'm not saying that they're lost causes or that like I hate them or whatever, but I just don't really want to spend my time associating with them or talking with them. It's not like not trying to dehumanize anybody, but just rather that like who I want to like be in with my circle, and like who I want to be talking to, and like who, what goals we have. Like the goals for me in psychedelics is using psychedelics for aiding in the transition to great change. Um, and the other really big thing about psychedelics, which I didn't really talk about, but it's like I feel like primarily psychedelics are in the realm of phenomenology in terms of like psychedelics for psychedelic sake, and what that's very similar to art for art's sakes, art I mean art for art's sake, and the idea is there. It's like it's not really about like that art needs to influence science or art needs to um, deepen philosophy or your understanding of life. A piece of art can just be what it is, and you can appreciate the aesthetic. It makes you feel a certain way, and then that's it. Um, and yeah, it's like, and that can be what psychedelics are about. It's very similar to um, uh, sex, and I think music. It's like these things that like is like, why go out of your way to make music and listen to music, or like why go out of your way to have sexual experiences. At the end of the day, it's like the phenomenology of like having that experience is life enriching in and of itself. It's like what you do to um, enhance the life that you have right here, right now. And it doesn't need to be like a big revelation, and it doesn't need to be for a big reason. You can have psychedelics because it's fun. You can have a sexual experience because it's fun, or listen to music because it's fun. Like, and there's all sorts of different ways that you can do it. You know what I mean? Um, like, yeah, you can just take psychedelics and go to a movie theater, or take psychedelics and curate your entire apartment experience, or go on a trip, or like sit in a silent darkness. No matter what you choose, you are choosing to have to won't say manifest because I'm trying to avoid that, but like curate a very specific experience that you want to have. And I think there's value in and of that, of itself. And it's like there's still that tendency to be like, I need a reason to do this. Why am I doing this? Why do I put myself through this? um, there doesn't always need to be a reason. Sometimes it's just for its own sake. It's beautiful, it's great. um, but broadly speaking, psychedelics do still have great potential and benefits for other things. I just also think primarily we should just value it for what it is itself. Um, Although, like, not to put down the fact that like it has great medicinal benefits and potential to help with changing people's minds and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, there's like lots of different aspects to it. I think there'll also be like great opportunity for like ceremony and like traditions and stuff like that. Bring that back into like an annual thing. Um, that'll be really cool. Like, cause like Yuletide, for example, Christmas is coming up, and it used to be Yuletide before the Christians Christianized it with their Christianness. Um, uh, it was very much so. Sativa, careful. Okay, oh, feeling dangerous. Um, Yuletide was like mostly a celebration to like just get wasted, like an excuse to get like absolutely blitzed. And that sounds like pretty rad. I mean, like, I don't think we should get reckless, but like I definitely think there's like great value in like community based ecstatic experiences. And I think that can be like really life fulfilling. um, my voice is getting tired, and I'm kind of starting to wind down. So yeah, I just finished the coffee. Um, so yeah, maybe I'll go for like 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes. Hmm. I don't know. Like, is there? I feel like I'm starting to run out of things to talk about for tonight. Um, I said I was gonna do a script this week, but I'm probably just gonna have to do it this weekend. But I'm gonna have a video out for next week. Um, yeah, because there's like still a lot of things I want to talk about. Um,
You can keep going if you want to keep going in grocery stores in coastal town.
yeah, I know I can. I just don't know what else to talk about. Sounds to me like you prefer to live in a world where anything and everything is meaningless. I don't see the point of that. Yeah, Buddhistia brings up the point that I want to live in a world that's meaningless. Um, it's not what I want. It's that like trying to see or like recognize what reality is in and of itself. I think I don't think reality or the universe has an inherent objective meaning. Like no, I don't actually believe that. I think meaning is a human construct, but I don't think that's a way to like belittle meaning. I really see meaning as a humanist thing, as a human thing. Like, for example, I could be unkind to you and to my audience. I can choose to do that, but you know, it would mean more to me to foster like a good relationship and that like I make people feel better. That like that brings me personal meaning. That's like it matters to me. You know, it doesn't matter to an alien on some other planet. You know, it matters to me, and like I think it matters to other people. It's a human derived thing. It's not that like you know the stars set out to create the human experience. The human experience happened, and now that we're here, I think it's fucking wonderful, and I will make the most out of my life, and that gives me meaning, not the universe meaning. You know what I mean? Or the greater universe meaning. That's my view of it.
That was addressed to Mimetic, but thank you for such an elaborate explanation.
Mimetic said that.
Or the comment you were responding to was addressed to Mimetic. What do
Oh,
you think about that?
oh, I see. MH says, interbeing, do you think Terrence was a CIA asset? No, that was disproven. There was like one quote that he said that like he said they recruited me. Um, but um,
You mean machine
but yeah, he was talking about machine elves. He was talking about the psychedelic other. He also alluded to them several other times. Like one time he was talking about like it might seem like we're boring, or burring. I think it's boring through solid rock.
Oh yeah.
Um, but there's someone else coming through that rock that's going to meet us part way. And again, he was like kind of referring to the transcendental other or whatever. That we're not like alone in this. That like someone else is like pulling us to a meaningful destiny or whatever. Um, but yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if like in a couple decades there'd be like research come out that like the CIA secretly funded something that he did or did like as like an unwilling or like what's that no unknowing unwitting asset. Like Gordon Watson is an example of a CIA unwitting asset where his research was funded by the CIA and he didn't even know about it, and so like all the research was going for Central Intelligence, but he had no knowledge about that. But I honestly can't see what the CIA would have out for Terrence McKenna. You know, like what would they even use him for? Like, there's nothing about Terrence McKenna that would really aid the CIA. I wouldn't be surprised if the CIA was inspired by him. Like in the '80s, they did that whole Operation Stargate thing, which they really wanted to see if remote viewing, as in out of body experiences, could be utilized militarily, which was a frightening thought. But luckily, it didn't go anywhere because they couldn't prove it. And if the CIA couldn't get it to work, I have very little faith that it would work consistently. Buddhistia, thank you for coming out. I hope you have a great weekend. Yeah. Yeah, so I think I've said all I wanted to say for this stream. I had a lot of fun. I really appreciate everyone coming out. Um, Before I go, obviously, I want to thank my patrons for continuing your support. I know some of you are here tonight, and I really appreciate your ongoing support. It really does help a lot. And I wanted to give a special shout out to Zoey Dubs, my latest patron. I don't have an interbeing for you yet, but that's on its way. Um, yeah, I really appreciate everyone coming out. I hope I gave some good food for thought. I'm not sure if I explained myself the best, but Operation Midnight Climax, something you might find interesting. Midnight Climax rings a bell. I know I've looked into a lot of the CIA stuff. 53 to 64. Oh, Midnight Climax. That's the freaking like one double-sided mirror thing. Is that what it's called? Two-way mirror? Yeah, that's the whole thing with the two-way mirror and the like setting up brothels and dosing people with LSD. My God, so awful. But that sounds like a conspiracy, but it's true. Yeah, they did some wild stuff, and I don't condone anything the CIA does ever. Anyways, I'm definitely not a CIA agent. And I don't think Terrence was either. I don't see anything they would find beneficial at all. There's just very little evidence for it. Right. Yes, mimetic work. Right. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate that, and thank you for your questions. I had a really great time. I already thanked my patrons, Zoey Dubs, and yeah, I'm gonna have some dinner and have a good night's sleep, finish off my reading week, and I will see you in the video next week, and I will be following that with a stream the following week. So if you want to like save your questions or see me again, I would greatly appreciate that. Take care, everyone. Trip safe, and yeah.